To think about the very unfair.
Dr. David Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I rise to speak to Part 3, and I feel that Part 3 is a really lovely encapsulation of the whole bill, because it contains parts that we see, aspects, themes. I shan't speak about the whole bill, but the aspects and themes that it covers are parallel throughout the bill. We have, as Dr. Megan Woods has so eloquently enunciated, a number of clauses which refer to the broader definition of income, which is the aspect of the bill that is about fairness, that is about making sure that the student loan scheme is sustainable over the longer term, because we on this side of the House do believe in student support, and we believe that it is something that is good for New Zealand, is good for those individuals involved, leads to future prosperity. We'd like to see more of it as New Zealand can afford it over time. We think this is a good thing. So the broadening of definition is the part that we support. Then, as we move on through there, we see that this part of the bill also contains the amendments relating to the repeal of provisions on the 10% bonus, which of course is a Peter Dunn U-turn. So this bill is rife with U-turns, and this nicely encapsulated in Part 3 is not only the broadening of the definition of income, which we support, but the kind of embarrassment of a government U-turn contained in this legislation, of which there are many through the bill, and we have discussed them in previous parts of the debate on the committee stages, the various U-turns contained in this bill. And then finally, at the end of the bill, in clause 68, we also have some tidying up. And that tidying up relates to the rushed changes that went through in Budget 2012, and there we saw the government make eligibility for student support much more difficult. We saw changes that restricted access. We saw in there an increase in the repayment thresholds, so that students who are on relatively modest incomes were forced to pay a larger portion back sooner, and those with dependent children and so on will be feeling the pinch of that. And so in this Part 3 of the bill, we have all different aspects of the bill reflected. It's kind of typical of the wider bill. We have the good intent, we have the embarrassing back down, and we have the tidy up, the sweep up after the minister on some previous mistakes. Now, the sweep up at the end there relates to those eligibility and support mechanisms that we talked about rushing through in Budget 2012, and the repayment thresholds that were adjusted in Budget 2012, and the reduced access to support. And that again points to the differing attitudes between the two larger parties in this Parliament. If we remember back, it was National that introduced student loans in the first place. They sought to make it a bit more challenging for students to attend university. Labor introduced interest-free student loans, which made student loans more accessible again and more affordable. And then subsequently, this government has introduced administration fees on those loans, a way of introducing interest again without introducing interest again. A clever backdoor trick, if you like, to try and make sure there are charges on loans without going back on the promise not to introduce interest back onto loans. It's a Clayton's. Yeah, that's right. That's right. My colleagues are right there. And so Part 3 of the bill encapsulates nicely the themes that stretch across the bill. Labor will be supporting the bill for the fact that it is a fair attempt to go after those who are avoiding paying their due. And we support that. We know that there are 101,000 student loan borrowers living overseas. Roughly half of those are of no fixed abode. Their address is not known to the taxpayer who collects those things, and a total of $2.67 billion is owed, which is a phenomenal amount. The average amount of default is somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000, and there are 14,000 borrowers in default with debts of over $10,000. Now, it seems unfair and galling to those who are making an effort to pay back their student loans when they see others getting away with not doing it. So it is essential that this broadened definition of income is applied, that the efforts to collect that money are realistic and forthright, and the data matching proposal seems to get to that extent. Whether it can be implemented, of course, is a different matter, and that's something we've covered in earlier parts of the bill.
So, Carol Beaumont.
And thank you very much.
Well, I'm trying to share this around. I'm sharing the love
just
here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cunliffe had already had two, so that's why it's your turn.
Okay, well, that's great.